Board meeting of Monday, November 21st, 2022. We have all 5 members of the planning board, but Bob Schaffer is remote. Joe, anything for open forum?
Nothing.
Jeff?
No, sir.
Go to the board. Board, anybody have anything for open forum?
Nope.
I'd just like to say the sidewalks on Oak Hill Road are very, very nice. And even the best thing about them is every time I drive by, there's somebody using them. So, did the town install them?
It was a town project.
It was.
We can inform the engineering department that you're
Yes.
very pleased with.
Yeah. And did we use some of the
Newport paved it, yeah, so that whole
Yeah.
project.
Yeah,
I think
that's
there was
great.
a component of that.
So, good job to the town.
Great. Bob, anything for open forum?
I do not have anything.
Great, thanks. Anybody in the audience with anything for open forum? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to our agenda then. First topic on the agenda this evening under public hearing items is PB 2201 site plan review, stormwater management permit for 5 Makepeace Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Paul Alphen. I represent the applicant. This is Jeff Brem from Meisner Brem Corporation. We have not been here in a while.
June, I believe.
June 6th, according to the agenda. It seems longer than that. But in the meantime,
yeah.
what we have been doing is we have been communicating with the engineering department, and we have been revising the plans. The plans have been revised a bunch of times to address the concerns of a variety of people, the abutters, the engineering department, the planning department, et cetera. We've also obtained information from a traffic consultant to address the traffic component of the bylaw. And what we thought we would do tonight, because to continue one more time just wouldn't have been polite. We felt we had to come and see you and keep you up to date on what's going on. We understand we don't have the final review from the engineering department. They probably want to make a last set of comments. But what we'd like to do is to bring the board up to date on how the plan looks now and focus on the changes we have made to the plan. And Jeff will do that.
Very good, thank you, Paul. Jeffrey Brem with Meisner Brem Corporation, representing the engineering part. We've had 3 letters. I'd like to go through in a very general sense what each of the letters were, our responses to that, so you just feel like you're up to date. We felt that, like Paul said, it's been so long, where are we, where are we at? And so it's a good time, I think, hopefully just before the final meetings, that we can bring you up to speed on what we've been doing. So the first review was in February of 2022. We responded a couple months later in May of 2022. Now, all of the engineering reviews are broken down into 5 categories, so I'm going to go kind of highlight each of those 5 categories. So the categories are, prelim, is a major commercial project, and they talk about that and how it relates to the bylaw. Site plan review, general comments, stormwater, and their proposed conditions of approval. So the major commercial project, original comments, a lot of them had to do with landscaping at the time. I don't think we had a landscaping plan, lighting, noise, for the uses and so forth. You remember we discussed that. Afterwards, at that review, the response including adding units 13 and 14, and we moved a few things on the site around a little bit. You've seen that, of course. We discussed retaining walls, the idea of having a transportation, what do you call it, TIA, Transportation Impact Assessment, was discussed and determined that we needed something, maybe not a TIA, but something more than we submitted. So we hired a consultant for that. Police had some comments, water had some comments, fire alarm, fire department, and we discussed whatever waivers we were going to need. That's a major commercial project. Under site plan review, they reviewed all the zoning and indicated areas that they wanted more information on. We had tables and tabulations and so forth. A lot on utilities, obviously, all the utilities. They did discuss in their review accessible parking, and we moved some parking around, the number of parking spaces, and whether the parking that we showed was accessible, was acceptable to the building commissioner. And since that review, we've changed that a couple more times. Lighting plan and landscaping plan in more detail, which we provided. Some of the general comments, there were many, there were 52 comments, so I'm not gonna go through them. But one of which is, I just saw you had the swept path analysis, was one of those comments, to provide one. We provided, and I'll talk later about what happened with that. On the stormwater, there were 54 comments, and on the stormwater, there were some major issues. Back at the beginning, we were not discharging where we are now, so I'll go through that in a little bit. We were discharging near the building, just to the north, and onto abutting properties. And it was winter when he wrote the letter, and none of us saw some of the details of what was going on out there about his property. And when the snow cleared, and that's part of the reason why it took us to May 27th, we needed this, it was a big snow year, and when the snow cleared, we found some catch basins on private property and other ways that changed our whole analysis of drainage. And we surveyed all those points. It took a while, and so forth. So, and we made change. And there were some issues relating to the Route 3 drainage. To the west is Route 3. And some of that drainage comes onto the property and how we're gonna deal with that, as you know. So, and then there was a pile of conditions, his normal conditions of approval, and on each one of these categories, I'm gonna say I'm fine with the conditions, so. Next, review was on July 8th to our May 27th submittal. We responded on August 2nd. At that point, the town did hire the TEC group to look at the transportation. I don't think we got a review yet from them, but there was an agreement to hire them. We had some real final police and fire comments. I think before they were either emails or they weren't official. Now we got some official comments. There were some shade trees. We had originally shown 2 shade trees to be cut to provide site distance and so forth. It was determined that we need 4 shade trees to be cut. And since then, they had a shade tree hearing on that. The Kingsborough Water Department provided approval that they would supply water to the project. Those are under major commercial project. Under site plan review, we've gone down from 54 comments to a lot less. We had some minor plan changes. They wanted a hydrant at the rear of the property to help the fire department. The accessible parking again was discussed and changed. Each one of these revisions, we changed the accessible parking. We reviewed that with the building commissioner after this response, and they are now acceptable to him, so. The general comments talked a lot about construction phasing and what we're gonna do during construction and after. There was more analysis on that. We provided a detailed WestfordCAT analysis, and that's where we changed where we are discharging, and now we are discharging to the northwest, right there. Joe's got his arrow on it. There's a catch basin on the edge of the road that the state owns, and we're going to tie into that catch basin. And we've communicated, just as an up-to-date, we've communicated many times with the state. They have a new, I think it's called SHAPS program to submit information. It's a giant pain in the neck, but it's all done online through a program. But we've contacted the state. They recognize that they're discharging a lot of their drainage directly onto this property, and then we're picking it up and then discharging it back onto their system. So that will work out, and one of your conditions is that has to be approved by them, finally. Snow storage areas we added, and we changed some of the parking around Unit 7, yep, right where Joe's arrow is. We reversed it, changed some doors to provide more access for the fire trucks. We had, on stormwater, we're coming down to the final issues now, and we did provide more details on the roof drainage system. Previously, we just showed a bunch of pipe work, but we've provided details of the pipe work and how it's going to get into the stormwater system on the rear, which is to the south. Joe, if you could bring your arrow to that. All right, no, just move it, yep, right behind the building there, on the rear of the building. That giant rectangle is the new stormwater infiltration system. That takes care of most of the flow. And that was moved, by the way, if you remember, it was further to the right, and we moved it to the west to keep it away from the wall. So that was review 2. Review 3 was issued on August 31st. TEC provided their review on October 26th. We responded on November 10th, and TEP responded on November 11th. And we're here kind of in the middle of that. So I'll tell you what our response is we don't have the review of those responses yet. But we provided a detailed traffic response. It's not quite a TIAA, but it's what they wanted, and we provided all that. And our consultant, Kim Hazavashian, Dr. Hazavashian, has been responding directly with TEC. It's TEP and TEC. It's completely confusing. Kim works for TEP, and your review consultant is TEC. We detailed our waivers and changed them a little bit. We are asking for a waiver of the full traffic TIAA, and I believe the engineering department is going to recommend that you approve that waiver because it's required for a major project, and we're working all these things out with them. So ultimately, there will be a waiver request, and that's a good reason for us to be here to explain that to you. We expect that our traffic engineer and TEP and TEC will work it out within the next couple of weeks. On site plan review, we're down to just a few things. For example, one of them was he thought our van space width wasn't wide enough. We had an 8-foot van space, and 8 foot for the opening of the doors. I think our width was something different anyway, so that's been fixed. Some of the other comments, we're down to details now, and we involved consultants on this. The industrial waste tanks in the building needed to be detailed out. So these are holding tanks because these are garage places with an internal drain required by code. And so where does that internal drain go? It goes into what used to be called MDC tanks. There's some other wording now. But that was provided by the consultant. When you first came here, the fire department swept path was on the screen. We did make a change on the near Unit 7 there. It's now going to be proposed as one way. So you come in both ways to the parking lot in the back, to all the units except for 7 and 8. We'll have to go around the building to get to their units, but it's no big deal. They would almost do that anyway. And by doing that, the front corner of the fire truck that was going off of the pavement area is now going to be retained in the pavement area. So and there's really no reason to have that as two ways anyway. So we reduced that to a 20-foot wide one-way section, and we changed again Unit 7. The Mass DOT has an additional discharge that was requested. Now, if you move down to the very bottom, no, the other way, right at the bottom of the screen, right there. The surveyors, we didn't do the survey, my firm, but another firm did, NDS, and they didn't find that at all because it was almost impossible to find. When they took a picture of it, they showed it to somebody in the office and they said, "Where is it?" And it's here, and you couldn't even tell when they dug it all out that it was there. But there was evidence that some of the drainage comes onto the site. We picked that up and we sent it through our system. The good news was we already had that drainage area incorporated in our drainage, so it really didn't change anything other than the details of the routing. So, but the big ticket items didn't change. This change involved a lot of mounting analysis requests, and that's the one thing that is out there that Jeremy's still working with us on, is when you put that much infiltration in one area, it creates a mound, and the regulations require you to look at that mound and look at the impact of that mound, and they're gonna make sure it doesn't pop out of the ground. And so, and then what happens at the property lines and so forth. So that mounting analysis just came in this week, and we'll be submitting it to them. It's all gonna be good, but he hasn't seen that yet, but he will see it probably tomorrow. And the last thing is all the conditions of approval continue on each letter, so that's why they keep getting thick, and we have no issues with any of the conditions.
What about the landscaping and the fencing to satisfy some of the concerns of the abutter?
Well,
That doesn't show on that plan though, right?
It doesn't, no, it's on the landscaping plan, I don't know if it. A private consultant of ours, Lemon Brook, did the landscaping plan.
Not
and
in
they-
that plan set, right?
I don't think so,
Yeah.
no.
It should be in one of the plans.
I think it's
I
in
don't-
it was in the latest one in the packet. It's, page. I believe it's page 60 in the packet.
I don't have your packet, I believe you.
Yeah, 'cause it's not in the paper copy.
There you go, there you go. Joe's got it. So the landscaping is, again, it's been changed a few times, so isn't the lighting, but there is a bunch of landscaping trees along exactly right there on the, near the roadway, and then in the back corner, buffering that property, and then, all around, including the neighbors on the residential project to the east. And some of that, obviously, some of the lighter landscaping around the building is there because some of that is snow storage areas. You don't wanna put a lot of landscaping where you can store snow. And then on the left side, the east side, there's some trees there to protect and buffer the building from Route 3. And you remember from the site walk, which I think every one of you attended here, it was much lower than Route 3. Route 3 is way above it.
Okay.
That's my report. I could go
Okay.
into more detail, but I didn't want to bore you. You will get
Too late.
decent letters. I already bored them? Okay.
No, all good. Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. Attorney Alphen, anything to add before we?
No, I think we're at that point where with one more report, we're probably ready to wrap this up.
Great. Joe, anything from town staff side?
Just as was said earlier, engineering hasn't had a chance to review the revised materials, but, at this point, it has gone through a couple iterations, so I don't know if there would be any large issues moving forward, but they haven't had a chance to review these revised materials yet.
Right. Before I go go to the board, one question. Is this also the lighting plan? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Did we receive some correspondence from an abutter today, or?
We did. So we didn't, from the abutter that lives at 7 Makepeace, they've been keeping an interest in the project. So I think Attorney Alphen was kind of alluding to, wanted to know whether or not any of the proposed changes was going to impact any of the proposed screening, any fencing, or anything that was proposed between the applicant's property and their property.
Sure. Can you speak to any fencing? There was talk. It's been a while, but I think there was discussion of a fence along the property line, right, of the direct.
Right, the applicant and the abutter were gonna get together. I don't think they ever came to a summary determination of what they're gonna do. I think the applicant wants to put in a chain link fence with slats in the middle, and the abutter hasn't agreed to that per se. But we did add a lot of landscaping, and I will say, on our end, that we had a 6 and actually a 7.5 foot wall back there. You remember I didn't go through this, but we talked at the last meeting in June about all the walls and the fact that the building commissioner determined anything over 6 feet would require permits, so we have terraced walls. And we regraded the building at that point, regraded the whole site, and the walls on the east side against Route 3, became, instead of 2 terraces, 3 terraces. So we lowered the site a little bit, and that allowed us to lighten up the wall on the northwest side. And so, northeast side, that side right there. And so there's only a 2.5 foot wall, and we did provide a detail for Jeremy on that, on this last revision, because he wanted to verify that it was 2.5 feet. And that's mainly gonna be piles of stones with a fence on top of it, so it's much better than the 6.5 foot wall that was there before.
Is there a detail of that on this sheet?
There is, there's the detail of the walls
That's
against
the
Route
one,
3.
Route 3 wall, right?
But there was a mention of a 5-foot wall?
They're all less than 5 feet. Each of those terraced walls are under 5 feet, correct.
Is there detail here of the 2.5 foot wall with fence?
I think there's just a notation on it, Joe. It's just a 2.5 foot wall, and if we provided the detail, I think we provided the CAD to Jeremy so we could check it out. He wanted all the spot shots, and it was just easier to give him the CAD.
So you're still gonna need a waiver for retaining wall height, because you're at 5, right? And I think the bylaw's 4.
No, well, no.
That's
Bylaws
what I
four.
was
Is it-
asking.
is it fo-
He's
is it
saying-
4?
Yeah.
Bylaw's 4, yeah.
4.
You get a 5 foot with the waiver, correct.
Where's the 5-foot one?
It's
Right
by
by the
Route-
corner.
by
It's
Route
Route
3.
Oh, so it's not on the neighbor's side?
Correct.
It's the Route 3 side.
Okay.
Okay.
If you remember, I think it was June, when the building inspector was here, the building commissioner was here, and he asked me for a copy of that, which I did provide to him, my hand-drawn copy of that wall detail.
Okay, so there's just though, coming back to the abutters letter from today, so there is still an active conversation, I guess, then going on between the abutter and the property owner, perhaps, around what kind of fence this is gonna be?
I don't know that. I just wanted to, I think we received the correspondence late. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware, that's all.
Okay.
I don't think there are any new concerns. It's just reiterating the concerns that were previously made much earlier in the process, and I know they've made a lot of changes to try to respond to some of those concerns. I just didn't
Yep.
want anyone to think we forgot about
Yep.
the abutter comments.
Got it. Before I go for board comments, though, can you go back to the landscape plan, Joe? Is the landscaping plan in this packet also the lighting plan?
I didn't do it, so I don't know. It looks
I-
like there's
I
some lights
think
in the
those
building.
little- yeah.
Yeah. But I thought they supplied you with some manufacturer's cut sheets.
Well, the thing I didn't see that I've seen in some other submissions is when it's like you can actually see how it will be illuminated in the evening based on the amount
The
of light
pollution
cast
goes,
from the, which is very helpful, especially when there's abutters to understanding
That's it right
any
there.
sort of.
That's it right
Okay,
there. There's your
that-
photogrammetric plan.
Am I the only one who, I didn't see
I
that?
didn't see that, yeah,
I knew that I saw something that.
okay.
Okay. Can we definitely get a copy of this before the next?
Sure, this
Uh,
was
time
from
we hear this?
back in May, as part of the May 26th
Oh,
submission.
okay. Alright, great. Yeah, that's helpful.
And basically, the lights around the building are just really security lights.
Yep,
This
yep.
is generally gonna be a daytime operation.
Yeah, yeah.
And really, as we talked before, there's no retail component, so there's not gonna be any general public driving in.
Yeah. Okay, alright. Well, if there's nothing else from the applicant and town staff, I'll go to the board for comments. Who'd like to start? Darren?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the update. That was very helpful. There's a lot of information to digest there, so that was very good update. So, no, great. There was a lot of comments around drainage, lighting, the neighbors' comments, which are in discussion right now. So I'm just curious to see, engineering's final review, but I think there's a lot of progress that's been made so far. So, thanks.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I'm glad to see the walls towards the neighbors have been brought down a little bit. That catch basin that you found, was that where that pipe came from Route 3? That,
We saw
So,
something like
yeah, there's a catch basin there.
Right.
And it's just an open, no, it ends in a, just an open-ended pipe.
Yeah.
That got filled
looked like a
over the
culvert
years.
coming out of
Yeah,
the
just
side of the hill.
Out of the side of the hill, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm glad they kind of cut down on the neighbors a little bit, bringing those walls down, and hopefully they can get a good look at that landscaping plan, keep them happy. Other than that, I'm look forward to engineering comments.
Yep. Great. Kate?
I got a bit confused on the building square footage. On the plans, I think it's 25,865, but I thought I read in somewhere in the packet 28,000.
No, it's 25.
25, okay. And there was also discussion in the packet, I think you were the one who wrote it, how snow plowed areas is not the same as snow storage. So, given that you reduced the width of the roadways from the 24 to 20 feet, is there concern from fire about plowing in winter and making them too narrow for the trucks?
So the only part that changed to 20 feet is that part behind the building. Everything else stays at 24. Just that one little section. And you see most of it has parking associated with it too. It's just that one little area right in that corner of the building. That's the only 20-foot part, and then in the back corner. And then you transition. So, and we kept the left edge where it is. So if anything, there's more room to plow on the right edge.
Okay, just so the owner is aware that when he hires the people, they need to make sure that they don't make it too narrow.
It's all curbed as well, so it'll be against the curbing.
Okay. Just a comment on sheet 5, you had the number of parking spaces in little circles. And on the one on the south side, way on the bottom, it said 23 and I think it's 22. That's just a nit. just to get your counts to match.
It may be, because that's where we had the change of the, you could see the accessible spot right there. So, that may
Yeah.
be 22. I will look at that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because otherwise it adds up to more than 82 or whatever it is.
You may be exactly right. Thank you, Kate.
Look at this level of,
Hey, that means I looked at it,
yeah, I
right?
said, yeah.
Like, I don't get the count, so I had to count. I had a comment on the traffic counts. I appreciate the work that your consultant did. I'm trying to reconcile it in my head, though, because the traffic counts that they got were somewhere west of Route 3 on Dunstable Road. So it's hard to say, like, the people who are going eastbound, how many of them are really going to keep going onto Makepeace, and how many of them are going eastbound just to get onto Route 3. And it would really be helpful to get a sense of what the traffic is coming from the east of Route 3 towards Route 3, you know, because a lot of that traffic, I'm sure, was meant to go onto Route 3. And so what do we see for the people on from the east, on Dunstable East, going through Makepeace to get onto Route 3? I don't get a sense of,
He discusses that a little bit in his report.
I missed that.
And he goes, and I think he and the consultant, tech consultant, talked about it as well. There's very little traffic on Makepeace because there's no cut through. You're not going anywhere. If you take Makepeace Road from Tingsboro, it just takes you into Chelmsford. It'd be easier to take Route 3 and go to that same spot. So there's no advantage to staying on Makepeace.
Okay.
And he does discuss it a little bit, and I think his numbers were conservative in that respect.
Okay, that was my only comment, that the traffic count stuff was really, I didn't think applicable
It was
to,
pretty far away, yeah.
and, yeah, and it was people, I think, who were all going Dunstable Road to Route 3, not to this area. But that was my those were my things, so
And you see there, by the way, if you walk around, at least during the daytime when I'm there, there's
Yeah.
never any cars. I go walk right in the middle of the
Yeah.
road, I don't even have to look, so, because why would anybody go there?
I hope you're wearing your yellow
Yeah, I
vest.
orange, looking around for the drainage. I look, I make sure, I'm safe.
So I guess that's it, so just waiting for engineering to finish their review.
Yep. Thanks, Kate. Bob?
Yes. First question I have is, I see reference to the need for a report from the police department. Have we received that report?
Yes, you have. That was back in, you would have got that at the, in response to the before July 8th, so it's pretty old.
I recall seeing that.
And that, so to Joe and folks, has that been reviewed by engineering?
Well, police did their review, and they were fine with the lighting plan that was provided.
Okay. My last comment has to do with, I see in here the language regarding the construction of the wall, which will use 2-foot-high rocks. Says that the way it was worded, 2-foot-high rocks can be placed from within the subject property. I'm assuming that will be enforced and that the rocks will be placed from within the property, not that they just can be.
You want the can comment to be shall.
Yes.
Capiche?
So besides what Kate covered, I'm good.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Hey, Joe, can we go to the sweep path again? Great, thanks. I want to understand traffic circulation a little bit. So I think what I heard you say is it's now one way. So traffic coming into the site will have to stay, when it gets to the Y, it has to stay to the right?
Correct.
and go around. And you said except for units 7 and 8, which can take a left because.
No,
Oh.
they still have to go
They have
around.
to circulate as well.
He said that ordinarily everybody would, except perhaps 7 or 8.
Okay, so you're not intending to let 7 and 8 scoot over. Everybody circulates around. Okay, great, that addresses my concern. I had a question about, you need to be able to support a two-way flow for a short period, and I was concerned with that bump out there, but, okay, great.
We're providing 20 feet, and just so you know, your subdivision regulations are 22 feet.
Yep.
And that assumes that people are gonna be parking on the road too, so it's not that much smaller. It's
Yeah.
just not 24 feet, which is required.
Yep, nope, if it's one way for all, that's great, because I had a question about signage, if we were gonna somehow denote that 7
Yeah,
and 8
yeah, that
can
would be
scoot
hard to
over,
do,
that would
right.
be, yes, agreed.
One way, except,
Except if
Well, it's
you're
like
at 7 or 8.
your sign on Old Road, right? You can't use Old Road except for these hours, but you gotta go right to the sign to see when the hours are, so.
Question, the 10% grading near unit 7, which was a topic, you've worked that out with
We figured
engineering?
that, yeah, we
That's
worked
been-
that out.
okay,
That was a
great.
while ago we figured
Yep.
that out, yep.
Yeah, well, haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
We missed you guys.
There was a lot of grading, minute grading that Jeremy just wouldn't stop asking questions about. I'm getting 0.8% and you gotta be at 1%, and I'm like, talking very fine grading, but
Yep.
you know that about him, so.
Yep. Great, yeah, the landscaping plan, actually, it looked good to me. I thought it was a good layout for trying to get as much shading and screening of the site as possible. So, I was actually personally very pleased with the look of the landscape plan. And like the rest of the board, I look forward to the comments from engineering, when they get done with their final review.
I can see though, on the one-way deal,
Yeah.
because the do not enter sign is by the building, by the corner of the building. Go,
Up.
I'll go up from there. Yeah, nope, go down, down.
Is it on the little bump out?
So it's possible for people to take a left and then get to the corner of the building and then see the do not enter sign.
Oh,
So I guess that's good for the people on 11 and 12, because they can, that way they can get to their parking.
yeah, they obviously have to be able to pull in straight,
Yeah.
right?
But I can see the people in 8 and 7, they'll drive there and just
Yeah,
scooch in, which, that's life.
yeah.
That's kinda how I looked at it too. It's, you're worried about an emergent situation, the horns will be going, the lights will be flashing.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, should there be maybe a sign back before it splits on the right-hand side that says at least like, keep right, one-way traffic, keep right?
We do have
or
a
something?
sign there, and we have a sign, going into there as well.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay,
there's signage on
I
the
didn't see it
plan.
Oh,
on,
good.
I didn't see it on a plan.
Okay,
It's in one of those notes.
Okay.
great. Okay, so those are all my comments. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to comment on PB 2201 at this time? Please, step up, state your name, address for the record.
Just based on the discussion I had, this is Nilesh, 7 Makepeace Road. Just wanted to understand, is there going to be an access, maybe I missed that, is there going to be an access from Route 3 to the 5 Makepeace, or it's just coming from the Makepeace Road?
Coming from Makepeace,
Only Makepeace Road, right? Not coming from Route 3?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
too steep.
It wouldn't happen.
Yeah, just making sure.
Yep.
I thought I heard something like that. And the second question was, I heard that the wall between, these units and my property, 7 Makepeace,
Yep.
was reduced from 5 to 2 feet or 2.5 feet, something like that.
Yep.
I'm just trying to, I heard comment that it was good for the neighbors. I'm just trying to understand how. I'm just trying to understand, how does it help?
I think the assumption maybe that we're taking as a board is most of the time when we've been in these situations where there's a retaining wall that abuts somebody else's property is they consider it kind of a visual disturbance to sort of being able to look out and see the countryside. It's like there's a 5-foot or 6-foot retaining wall, and some people prefer not to look at that.
Okay,
I
because,
think, unless there's.
yeah,
Sounds right.
yeah.
And that way, it's a 2.5-foot wall plus a fence rather than a 5 or 6-foot wall plus a
with-
fence.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so there is going to be a
It's kind of like
fence.
that looming wall thing that you probably don't want necessarily in the backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I am more towards the security rather than,
Yeah, yeah.
the aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
But if, with the fence, if it provides security, I think I'm okay with that, and I would ask my wife if she's okay with that.
Well, at the same time, the other thing to keep in mind is a high retaining wall with a fence on top. I mean, if you have kids and stuff like that in the yard, that becomes a natural place that they want to
lights
climb
higher
and
in the
play
air.
and things like that. So it can be, it's a mixed bag, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 is like easy to climb versus
Yeah.
5 feet, so that's another thing, right? So I was just more thinking
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the security perspective, 5 feet is better than 2.5,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But, and then, there was list of questions and concern that we talked earlier, so just wanted to make sure that's being done or honored, right? So, just wanted to make sure, that's it.
No worries, Leilish.
I
Anything else?
assume in the packet, you responded, so I assume
Yep.
it was to a lot of his questions.
We did respond to his questions directly.
Yep.
So at the,
The hours.
Yeah, so I think there were like hours mentioned, like, that's been confirmed too, right? Daily hours is between 7:30 to 5:30 for the businesses to come in and go.
I think we responded in writing, I forget exactly what we said, but I did not think that we were gonna prohibit somebody from coming back from a job in the evening and dropping their vehicle or their equipment off.
so there could be a final drop off at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, but the intention is not to have people working in these shops at, 7.
The intention is not to have people working in the shops late, but, if somebody's got a job up in northern New Hampshire and comes back in the middle of the night, they gotta come back in the middle of the night.
Right.
But how about starting in the morning? You did have something about that in your response. Not that I can find it.
On this, I mean, it has this,
Well,
unless it's on the screen.
What did
Yeah,
he-
it's the same thing.
yeah.
I think it's, question number.
You gotta scroll up, because they're saying it was answered in the previous
Yeah, it's
question.
right there.
Business hours will vary between 7:30 and 5:30 PM.
Yeah, okay.
So
I'm just
that's-
wondering, given the types of businesses, if they might actually want to start earlier, no offense.
Yeah, I don't see prohibiting hours with the way this is zoned. I mean,
Yeah.
encouraging them not to work all
family.
Yeah.
but.
So that-
I think it will be very difficult to say, like, I
Yeah.
think Attorney Alphin's right on it. I mean, if someone needs to drop a truck off at 8 o'clock at night because they're getting in late from a distant job, it's probably occasionally gonna happen,
Or
but,
start earlier.
yeah, or if they need to get there at 6 so that they can get to a job that's far away, I mean, I would assume that that may happen here, but it sounds like the intention is to try to limit it to between 7:30 and 5:30. I'm not sure that-
5:30? Yeah, that's the goal, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's something that this board can actually condition.
Okay.
I think to Mike's point, given the zoning, it would be difficult for us to really limit that, I think.
We'd encourage it and hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if it happens very regularly, then I can come back to the board and,
Of course,
or maybe,
and yeah.
reach
Well,
out
you
to
could
Ed,
come back
you know.
to the building commissioner, yes.
Absolutely, okay, that's
Yeah.
wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you. And we are talking about the security gate, you did mention that you were considering, so that's good to know.
Yep.
See the nod, thank you, anything else? All right,
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Anybody else in the audience, care to comment on PB 2201? Okay, so, has, engineering indicated if they would be ready with a review by our next meeting?
They indicated to me, December 19th would be their preferred continuance date, just so that way it gives them time, and if there are any revisions that need to be made, it gives the applicant time to respond.
Does that work for you?
It work for you, or are you in the Alps?
No, I'll be heading the following day to the west coast.
Oh, the west coast.
The west side.
December 18th,
December 19th.
19th.
Yep.
I move that we continue PB 2201, 5 Makepeace Road to December 19th in this meeting room at 7 PM.
Second.
Before we vote on it.
Yes, I also had a comment, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let you do your comment, which is probably the same as mine.
I would just, we'll call it an early holiday present for me. Can we just have an answer on what's gonna be done for the fencing for the neighbor when we meet on the 19th? Just whatever gets decided between the owner and the neighbor, I would just love to have that answer before us as we take our vote.
ASAP. You got it.
Whether it's chain link, whether it's decorative, whatever the case may be.
I was just gonna
Why?
say, and direct
Hopefully
staff
not.
to work on a draft decision.
Yes,
I
please.
assume we should be done by on the 19th.
Yeah, if we can have a draft decision in the packet so we can read through that. Yes, Jeff?
And then just if there are any waiver requests that have not been put forth in writing yet, if you could make sure to include that in advance in the next packet, that would be greatly appreciated, especially if we want benefit of a draft decision.
Yes. Because there's only two listed on the plans.
On the plan, right, there may have been one or two more added, I'll look for that.
Okay, so yeah, definitive list of waivers, that's good. Okay, we have a motion and a second with some comments that we'll consider included in that motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thanks.
Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
We'll see you on the 19th. Okay.
Good summary.
That was quick, right?
All right, that concludes the public hearing items for this evening's meeting. We're on to general business. Item A is PB 2134, an after-the-fact stormwater management permit for Providence Road lots 2 and 3, now H.R. Adams Way. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of the Adams Family Trust. I believe that's the name of the trust that owns it. We were here a few weeks ago to discuss the status of the stormwater report that was submitted, and at that time, we hadn't heard anything back from engineering on their review. I did receive some comments today, and I did review them. The only real issue is the roof drain infiltration chambers that are, don't meet the setbacks to the water supply wells. So the simple solution is that we are gonna eliminate those and just allow the roof drains to go into those various infiltration systems, like the one at the end of the road. Those are just basically low grassed areas. The runoff will go into there, seep into the ground. It basically work the same way as the roof drain chambers. It's just that it'll flow over land instead of into the chambers. I've already checked the calculations and everything will work, so we'll get everything revised and resubmitted to Jeremy and Paul. It's my understanding that there wasn't a draft decision ready yet for tonight anyway, so if we continue to the 5th, I think we should be able to wrap it up on then.
Okay.
That was the health board's comment, right?
Yeah, it's in the well regulations, water supply regulations, that the roof drain dry wells have to be 100 feet from a water supply well. So that comment was forwarded on to the health department, and Abby responded. I won't need to revise the septic plan since I'm just gonna be removing the infiltration systems.
Okay.
Got it. Makes sense. That's it?
That's it?
Great. Joe? Anything from town staff on this?
Yeah, if that's the proposal from the applicant, we'd be happy to run that by engineering, make sure it doesn't impact their comments. It doesn't sound like it's a major change that it would, and we could draft a decision for you to review at the next meeting.
Great.
Great.
Awesome. Let's go to the board for any comments that they may have. Bob, would you like to go first on this one?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great.
I'm
Kate?
good. No problem.
Fine, you answered my questions.
Mike?
No questions?
Darren?
No, just one question. So I guess, Mark, does that just mean that you'll have to do some regrading to get that water to go towards the basin that's now gonna be its destination, or will that just follow natural?
No, I think it's just gonna be a matter of running the downspouts down to it. We could actually pipe them underground so that they go into that, or we could just have them directed towards it and have overland flow.
Good. Great.
It won't create a rut over time.
Nope, as long as the lawn is properly maintained.
Great. Okay. Similarly, I have no comments. So a draft decision for the next meeting sounds great. Is there a motion to continue PB 2134 to the December 5th meeting?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue PB 2134 with a draft decision for December 5th, here in meeting room 201, 7 p.m. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Thank you.
Okay, thank
See
you
you
very
then.
much.
Yeah.
I do have one item, item C,
Oh,
I
could we-
believe.
Can I get out of order?
Sure.
If you don't mind,
Sure, I
it's
don't
gonna
mind
be
at all.
really quick because we're not ready to issue, engineering hasn't finalized their review of the Form G yet. There's still some outstanding items on the as-bills, that need to be addressed. Once those are addressed, then we can finalize the number on the Form G and move forward.
Okay, so,
Unless the board would be willing to release the lots without the bond, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Always the optimist, Mr. Schlager.
it is the holidays, but, so you'd like us to just continue item C then to December 5th?
Sure.
Great. Is there a motion to continue PB 1707 to December 5th?
No move.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue PB 1707 to December 5th, here meeting room 201, 7 PM, Town Hall. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Okay, very good. Thank
Happy
you very much.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
All right, we'll come back up in our general business topics to item B, which is a request for the planning board to support allocation of the remaining Summer Village Gift Fund towards various planning studies, including updating the townwide master plan. Who's on this? Oh, hi, Jeff.
This lucky person. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the last meeting, we initially raised this request. We were asked to do some additional homework. We did find the original agreement to see if there were any restrictions on the use of the funds. There's shockingly no restriction on the use of funds. It's for pretty much any purpose the planning board deems necessary. We also collected some of the projects that the funds were used for since it was created. So I think you have that information in your packet. The only other things that I have to add are that the town manager does support this approach very strongly, and the finance director believes this to be the most appropriate funding mechanism for planning studies. And so I just think, as you know, we do have a variety of planning projects. We're not asking for monies to come out of this fund yet. We're merely asking for the board's consideration to dedicate it towards various planning studies. Some of which it may be to fund an entire study. The others, it might be to fund an in-kind match. And we would have to come back to this board each and every time for a specific request for a specific project to see if we'd be supportive on a case-by-case basis. And so we're happy to try to answer any questions that you might have, because it seems clear that no time in the short future will we be able to secure the funding for planning studies as part of our regular budget process. And this seemed to be an appropriate use of the funds. It was also interesting to note that when this was originally established, the then planning board members, at least the chair, discussed using some of the monies to work on, say, certain elements of the townwide master plan. But none of the funds were actually used towards that end that we can tell from our research. So happy to answer any questions, and we truly appreciate your support.
Great. Okay. Well, let's start down the other end. Darren, what questions do you have?
No, I think the background information is very helpful. This looks like a lot of these funds have been used for recreation or planning related items, so I'm happy to support Jeff's, request for planning studies, which I think are needed.
Great. Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I've been all for this. I know our planning department does a lot of good work. We're sure a lot of departments do, but we're more aware of the effort that these guys put in, and if they need this money and it's appropriate, I can't see why I wouldn't be supportive of this.
Yeah. Great. Kate?
Jeff's smiling because he knows what's coming. I do feel the bind, and somebody who's been advocating for updated in our plans and stuff, I really feel the pinch that you guys have. There is another potential source of funding, and that's the ARPA funds that the town got for COVID-19 mitigation, and it currently has over $3 million in it, and the town manager has stated that it is also appropriate to try and use that for these purposes. I know Jeff says there are a lot of strings attached, but, and I don't know the process, I don't know what the conditions are on getting that money, but, as things start to gel on wanting money and knowing what other sources we have and whether or not we could apply ARPA funds, I would really like to use that as the first, if possible, and then reserve this for ones where we actually have to use these funds for it, if we can't at all use ARPA funds.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, Kate, do you want to use these funds elsewhere? Do you see a different use for these funds? I mean, in my opinion, right, so if ARPA needs some matching funds, I mean, this is where the matching funds could come from, right? So I think this could just help all around. I mean, I'm not sure.
It's like seed money.
Right, I mean, do you?
I don't know how ARPA works, so.
So I think we're conflating some things. So a lot of times when we apply for, say, recently the Community One Stop grant program, sometimes we have to provide an in-kind match. So it's not that we would be matching ARPA funding, it's that we'd be matching, if we secured a grant, we would have to provide some kind of in-kind match.
I think my point was that you had said there's lots of strings attached with ARPA. Is this part of, one of it, right? They'll match portions.
So my greatest concern with ARPA right now is, and we keep going to, say, the townwide master plan. So we have a lot of things that we're trying to work on now. We have the mandate for the multifamily housing. That's a significant bylaw amendment. That is not small. This is like very large.
I appreciate
And to
that.
do it well, we're committing a lot of our resources to it. We have the opportunity to secure, because we applied for a grant, a consultant to assist us with some of the fine tuning there and to help with the public engagement, which is all great and good. There's an in-kind match for that we have to do. But we're also trying to tackle the tiered site plan review, and we don't want to also forget, we had talked about the commercial recreation. So over the next 2 years, we do not, even if we had money, we don't have the capacity. I'm not saying we lack the ability, we do not have the capacity in-house, even with the assistance of consultants, in my opinion, to do justice to anything like the comprehensive master plan. We just simply cannot do it. And I don't think we could give it the attention it deserves until we have concluded certainly the multifamily housing, which our deadline is the end of 2024. We would have to, in assuming any of the other ongoing planning projects that we're trying to tackle, and there's others that we've mentioned to you before, I don't think we would be able to start that properly, say a comprehensive master plan, until sometime in 2025. I think to do a true master plan process, and yes, it's an update, but I think we have a lot of significant changes to do. This isn't just dusting, a lot of things have changed in the world since, the last master plan. And so a good master planning effort, I think, takes at least a couple of years. And so we would have to expend, if we use the ARPA money, there are hard deadlines by the end of 2026, I believe. And for me, that's cutting it tight if we don't get to truly embark on, say, the master planning process until 2025 to wrap it up, not rushed, and do the job that it deserves by the time the ARPA deadline kicks in. And so to me, I see that we have a source of funds. I think it's appropriate. It was talked about using it for elements of, say, planning efforts. This is something within your control. If something changes, nothing binds this future board from changing their mind. But for the short term and the here and now, we're asking that you consider dedicating these monies. And you're certainly free to change your mind if, say we're fortunate and we secure lots of grants. Maybe there are some things that ARPA might make sense for that isn't as exhaustive as the comprehensive master plan that we feel that we could do well within the allotted time frame. It's just that we can't tell you that now. We don't know what's going to happen with this multifamily housing. Are we going to be able to take a crack at it, early in 2024? Is it going to come down to the wire? And what happens if we don't make it at the first or second town meeting? We may not be prepared to go full swing into another major planning initiative like that would very much be affected by a multifamily housing district. So
But say multifamily you have to work on now.
we do.
So we need to hire consultants now. So I would prefer trying to use ARPA money for that and leaving the Summer Village money for later when you're saying we might not have the ARPA funds available.
I think that's great, but if we don't earmark it for planning now, then we won't have that opportunity. I don't think we're spending this money right away, but we're asking select board to allocate it to the planning department.
No, no.
Yeah. Yes.
No, because we don't have any specific projects for them to vote on.
Doesn't.
So
It's
they're
just-
earmarking
it's-
to us, but he won't spend it until
Right.
they come before us.
We have to come back
They
to
have
you
to come
for a
back and
specific.
Spend it.
Spend it. All we're doing is taking the money and putting it in a
And just
virtual envelope,
allocating it to us.
earmarking it for the use of planning studies, and then they would have to come in and say, I'd like to make a withdrawal from the virtual envelope, $40,000 towards this. We have to take action on that. And what I'm hearing is,
And it also has to go to the select board.
and what I'm hearing is, at any time, if ARPA funds became available, we could always take a decision at that point to say,
Use
let's
that first.
remove the $60,000 from the envelope and put them back into the Summer Village Fund and use them towards something else.
Or put it back in the
Or-
planning fund.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
For another project.
But it's allocating it to the land use department as opposed to
Sure.
another department.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was gonna let,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, no,
It's still your,
no, I'm done, so.
okay.
That's my only thing, I just,
Yep.
I
Well,
want
let's-
ARPA done, used first.
Yep. Bob, what are your thoughts?
I'm listening to Jeff, and I think it's a convincing argument in terms of an immediate need, and this might be the only source. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And I think the only other question I have is, because I don't have it in front of me, is what other potential sources of funds we might have in terms of other mitigation efforts. But yeah, I'm fine at this point using the funds as requested. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah.
I don't know of an other obvious bucket of money to draw from. I'm not sure this, I'm not saying we couldn't apply, but I'm not sure this actually meets the definition of capital. You know, it's a little funny. And maybe there's ways that we can still look to find ways for, maybe there's a way to look for ARPA for in-kind match. But I do know that both the town manager and finance director think this is the most appropriate way to fund, but that doesn't mean we're giving up on looking at alternative funding.
Right.
And we're certainly still trying to secure whatever grants we can.
Yeah. The decision makers on ARPA funds that are available is the select board?
Select board.
Okay. And do we have a sense for how long the queue is for departments or agencies within the town that would be looking to use those funds for projects?
So they are coming up at their next, is it December
December
13th?
Yeah, 13th, yeah.
Is when they're going to, remember that when they first started this, they truly wanted to hear the most urgent things that were directly tied to COVID. Then it was things still somewhat related to COVID, but not as time sensitive.
Yep.
And now it's gone down to the, okay, whatever you got, now's the time. So if there is something you would like us to make a specific request for,
Yeah.
we still have some time. I just wanna, I have a little discomfort about saying, say, master plan, if I
No,
think we're
but
gonna be in a
the-
time crunch.
But the multi-housing,
Yep.
you need a consultant for that.
We have a grant for that. What we were considering is, can we look, see, we currently actually have just enough money in our budget for that in-kind match, which takes us through June.
Well, can you get ARPA and use the match stuff that we have for something else?
So we are considering that, but at the end of this fiscal year, that money is gone to us. It goes back to the general fund. So we would have to have something else lined up before June that we can do, you know, an in-kind match for. And we're just looking with the grant cycles and what we have. I mean, we're still looking,
Yeah.
but I'm not optimistic.
I'm just,
I know, and I appreciate it.
I mean, planning and land use has been shortchanged for the last 20 years, and I think they deserve part of the bucket.
Thank you, Kate.
So, what do you need, Jeff, a vote?
We would love a vote to dedicate the remaining monies in the Summer Village Gift Fund towards planning studies, with the understanding that we would have to come back to this board and the select board for ultimate approval.
Is the total remaining funds available on page 115 of the packet accurate as far as we know?
Excluding if there is any accrued interest, yes.
Got it.
So I move that we support to allocate the remaining Summer Village gift fund in the amount of $109,141.94 plus any accrued interest towards various planning studies.
Second?
Motion and a second to allocate the summer village funds towards planning studies. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you very much. Kate, it sounded
Thank
like
you
you
for
put
making
your
it
dog down.
I'm glad it was unanimous.
I
Thank
almost
you.
forgot Mike's name with your response.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just goes to show you folks, you can never predict which way the votes are gonna drop.
But I will always advocate when you come to us that ARPA comes first,
All right.
as long as possible.
We already addressed item C previously. We're on to item D of our general business topics, which is a review of the proposed 2023 meeting dates and deadlines.
And this was my request, just 'cause I was putting the meeting dates in my calendar, and I realized we didn't have any in January. And I know we had talked about the possibility of just having ad hoc meetings, but I didn't know, like, if there are some public hearings on the horizon, or some public hearings coming up, the plans that might be ready in January or not, that they might.
Well, January 8th's a holiday. Elvis's birthday.
Dedicated meeting, huh?
January 8th's Elvis's birthday, so
Weird things could happen.
you never know.
So that one's out.
I think the third is probably out too, but I was just,
So we had one in January, is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm just
Technically, there's
suggesting.
0 in January.
Right now,
Right
there's
now we
zero.
have 0.
There's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and then the decision was to cancel
And
the,
the other one is MLK Day.
No.
And that's the only month where we do not have any meetings
Right.
scheduled.
so the second Monday, the 9th is Board of Health typically meets then.
Right.
And then on the 3rd and the 17th, School Committee meets then.
In this room. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, here.
Well, School Committee doesn't meet in here, but
meet
just
in
for, in terms of broadcasting the meeting,
No.
we wouldn't have a
What
lot.
about January
wouldn't have a
8th?
So
live
would is
broadcast.
the 8th the best day?
The 8th is Sunday,
Oh, you had, so you
no.
had the wrong date.
Why is that?
the
It's
9th.
on the sheet.
Yeah, we took Kate's,
Oh, so it's the
email,
9th.
but the 9th is
I can't read a
Monday.
calendar.
So the Board of Health meets, but I believe they still meet virtually. I'd have to double check that. But then otherwise the 23rd of January, which is the 4th Monday, which there are 5 Mondays, so you would still have 2 weeks in between your February 6th meeting.
A month of 5 Mondays.
I'd say the 9th, right?
Yeah, I would say, I'm fine with the 9th.
Kind of in the middle of the month.
Yeah,
We can confirm the Board of Health is a meeting in here.
Yeah, can we just check to see if this room is booked?
You can have it at Karma.
it's a capital idea.
We can have it at
Thinking
the
outside the
fire
box.
station,
You
they
know
have
me.
a room.
Yeah.
This one, yeah. That's right, I've never been down there.
It's nice, but they have to record us, okay?
True. Well, they don't have to.
So,
Yeah, the 9th is available, I'm happy with that, fine with that.
yeah, I agree.
Sounds like that's the way to go.
The 9th is the easiest way to go, assuming the room's available.
And then if the room was not available, we could check for an alternate location.
We've done Millennium before, is that just a lot?
So generally, you would have to be, which is not a problem, committed to adjourning early. Because usually, the custodial staff is only there up to a certain point.
Well, let me just follow on to Kate's, I think, earlier ask. What does the pipeline of applications look like if you were to divine? Are we better off picking the 23rd because we're gonna get through a bunch of stuff here by the end of December and there's gonna be a lull, we need to build it back up?
Or the alternative is if there's nothing really in the pipeline, if nobody's come to you and said, hey, I'm thinking of applying, then, you know, if the dates are all bad, I would be amenable to, in December, our second meeting in December, just picking, you guys say, here's, you know,
Yeah, or if.
here's some dates, because we need to get together to review the proposal for the multifamily stuff, because that's due at the end of January.
Well, we're hoping to have that on your December 5th meeting, actually, because we got to get it to the select board.
Okay,
And what if they need
Time.
to discuss that more than one meeting?
yeah, yeah, but I'm just saying, we're gonna probably need to tie everything up in a pretty bow.
Well, if we think it's gonna be largely general business and maybe like one public hearing, I know nobody on this board favors the virtual, but that's the other fallback, is if we take the night.
This is true.
And the room is booked, we
Yep.
could just make a decision to say, we do it one virtual meeting, so that at least we
Yeah.
have a meeting.
Get it done.
And get it done.
Okay.
I mean, it's a,
Good idea.
I mean,
Yep.
we're here if the room's available, if not, we agree to a Zoom meeting and we get the business done that's gotta get done,
Okay,
I think.
Yep,
you know?
great idea.
What do we have so far? A preliminary subdivision?
Vision for December 19th. We have a preliminary subdivision for that.
Oh, so that starts on the 19th, okay.
Yeah. We also have Brookside, 73 Brookside, the Old Willows proposal.
Oh.
They just had their first round in front of the zoning board. They're gonna have their first round in front of the Conservation Commission, and then another round with you all. And we may or may not have one other proposal for January, but
Okay.
still to be determined.
Great. So it sounds like the 9th, here
Okay.
if we can, virtual if we can't. Is there a motion to that effect?
so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second for booking the first planning board meeting of 2023 on January 9th, ideally here in meeting room 201, Town Hall. If not, we will do it virtually. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren? Aye. I say aye. All right. Anything else on meeting dates and deadlines, or was that it?
That was it.
Great. Okay, we're on to Bob?
I just had one comment. I realized that on the 19th, I am flying on the 20th, and for the 19th, I'm actually leave. That actually occurs for me on the 20th, so I'm going to be only available for the first hour 15 minutes of that meeting.
Of
'Cause I'll be
December.
on my way to the airport. I'm coming home.
All right.
Nice.
Just for the holiday? Or for good?
Not for good. I come home fairly for good at the end of January.
Okay.
Nice.
Great. Okay, so I guess we know Bob's only available for the first hour to hour and a half on the 19th, so.
So we should, we could have a little discretion for ordering any agenda items for quorum purposes. That
Do
would
we
be-
wanna, can we start early on the 19th? Is it too late to start early on the 19th?
How much notice do we have to give on that? 2
Well,
weeks?
it depends. If it is, if it's a general business item, you know, we have a lot more leeway. If it's a public hearing, we still have some flexibility now, but if the board is amenable to starting early, we can.
Like at 6:30 and do general business first or something?
Now, wait a minute, though.
We just continued.
What does
5
that do to
Makepeace.
poor Bob?
It gets him up even earlier in the, it gets him up even earlier in the morning.
Right.
Oh, you don't like that? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, just prioritize what we can
Yeah,
at
let's just
7.
prioritize
Yeah.
it and front load the meeting, and, yeah, as best we can.
Okay.
And I will have it on my mind to be extra brisk on the 19th.
I won't ask a lot of questions.
Oh, come on, Kate.
Okay. We are on to item E, which is a preliminary discussion regarding MBTA communities, requirements, and next steps.
So this is mostly for your benefit, Dylan, and our benefit. As you know, we have a pretty harsh deadline coming up, and we'd love the planning board to be in a position at their December 5th meeting
Yep.
to make some kind of recommendation to the select board about a draft action plan.
Yep.
And so since you weren't at the last meeting, we're hoping to hear any high-level comments that you have.
Yep.
So we can factor that in before we get a revised draft action plan in front of you folks. We did ship this out also to a lot of, boards and committees and some stakeholders. We don't have a lot of comments in yet. They know the deadline, but we've made it very clear, we'll take any and all comments, even well past submission of the draft, of the action plan, because it's just the very beginning of the public planning process, so.
Yep. So I watched the video of the last meeting, and I did look at the last meeting packet. Can you pull up the map by any chance, Joe, where you've kind of marked the parcels that would be multifamily parcels?
Or at least considered.
Or being considered, yeah, sorry.
Remember, we're not committed to anything.
Right. Okay. So, there was another one in the packet though, or last week's packet or last meeting's packet, which was, they were shaded orange, was the whole town of Westford. Is
So
that
that was
parcels that are already zoned for multifamily, is that correct?
Well, existing multifamily developments.
That's what this is.
So, yeah, so we thought that'd be good for reference.
Yep.
But they wouldn't really apply, or we wouldn't necessarily include them in the,
That's not the only ones that we're, as of this moment, say the Bell properties, I think maybe Concord Place. We're not really taking advantage of all the multifamily. And again, when speaking with the state, it's okay to take credit for existing multifamily, but if you just go around town and pick out all the multifamily developments, it's not gonna satisfy the intent. So we've been very careful to try to pair it up with honest potential for additional dwelling units.
Farms, multifamily considered?
Um,
And they're like 2-unit condos, but.
we could, we were
I'm just
trying to
curious
be,
if it is, or.
well, is that highlighted in there?
What's that?
Thought it was.
Blanchard Farms.
Granville Road. Condos by that little pond.
Yeah, both, sort of both sides.
Oh, is that,
Flushing Pond?
No, the little
No,
pond by the community gardens on Granville Road.
Graniteville.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so there's that one. It's highlighted. So, but again, we were trying to look at areas where we wouldn't just take an existing multifamily, we'd want to pair it up with other properties that have potential for development.
yep.
And to just go into the Residence A zoning district, which is legal, doable. I think the direction we got last time and what we came out of the gate with is more along the mainstream places, Littleton Road, where we have clearly the infrastructure, and where it might not create as great a departure of character. We do think there are other parts of town that could benefit from an overlay, but we don't think, it's a lot of we here, we don't think it should be painted in the same brush as what happens on Littleton Road. It needs to be tailored to that neighborhood, in our opinion.
Okay, so can you pull up the proposed parcels again? And remind me again, they're supposed to be what? They don't have to be on some sort of an MBTA like bus route or something, right?
Correct. So, there's certain things that the overall goal is, we're an MBTA adjacent community. So in theory, one of the criteria we should be looking at is, are these potential properties in an overlay conveniently located so as to have practical access to the MBTA facilities in the adjacent communities?
Yeah, so was the parcel across the road from Westford Regency considered?
Funny you should say, we have
Matrix
been,
ones.
It used to be very fine forever ago,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
we have been exploring that. We did do a quick site visit. We were gonna try to maybe reach out to that possible stakeholder. We thought it did make some sense to include.
Yeah.
So we didn't necessarily put everything in the first go around. We wanted to get board's input, but there were some other properties we had wanted a chance to maybe reach out to some of the property owners, because we didn't want them maybe finding out because someone saw it at a planning board meeting. So we've tried to make a good faith effort to reach out to many of these property owners, but that property made some sense to us.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
that was the one in this sort of map of the area we're looking at that made sense to me. And
Yep.
then I did see the discussion around Liberty Way that came from the last meeting, which I sort of agree with. And again, that parcel sort of connects with Liberty Way and 110. So if Liberty Way was going to be another area for consideration, it would kind of keep that zoning in a geographically similar area. So, you know, for what it's worth.
So we did look a little at some of the, because that's a condominium association, we
Yeah.
did look at a little research. Sometimes you would expect there to be a prohibition on certain types of uses, because it is an industrial condominium association. We actually did not find anything that prohibited other uses, so we didn't see any deal breakers in the governing documents. But we felt it a bit reckless to throw it in before we at least did that limited research.
Yeah.
So we can either think about adding it or showing it as another possible area to focus on in the public planning process.
Did the Economic Development Committee reach out to those condo people and?
Sure, we
Makes
actually have
sense.
a decent contact there, we can do that too.
Since it would be economic.
Yeah, we had some questions. I mean, Dylan, you would probably know better than all. In some places down there, it seemed like maybe this makes sense, and others were like, is that gonna fit?
On Liberty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the wetlands, but.
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
So, and
But I
then,
don't think there's any empty properties down there. Like, they're all fully filled, I believe. at
well,
this point.
there might have been some, but they're largely, except for, yeah, they're largely occupied, but,
Well, 10 actually has a tenant now, I thought.
they're working, I'm not sure about that.
Someone bought the building.
Yes, Jumbo Capital, but they were doing recent fit up, I think, to make it easier for potential tenants walking in to better envision the space. To my understanding, they don't actually have any tenants yet.
Oh.
Is that their name, Jumbo Capital?
Yes.
It's like a law school hypothetical, right?
Exactly.
It really is.
Could be
that the
a
old
tiered
one
site
building?
plan review in the future.
It's an SAT answer.
So we can include, if you like, we can include Liberty. We can note it out differently to be further studied. However you'd like us to approach it. If you got any guidance now, we'd appreciate it, because that way we could still make those changes.
I like highlighting it as a questionable.
Warrants further,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
We can
Very
do that.
interesting.
And maybe the very fine one would be the same,
Yeah.
if you don't have time to talk with
An
them.
area of interest. What about further east on 110 so Joe, can you go back up to the one that shows the existing multifamilies? Because it's just an area that I don't know that much about, but there is,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I'm talking about?
Well-
Near the line in Chelmsford, there's like
Yeah.
a multifamily area? And
Yeah.
I'm like, and then just in general with some of the stuff that we've done down that way, it doesn't seem inconsistent with, you know, the new Helena Crocker residence that's going in, what the condos that the former sort of salvage yard had
Yeah.
gotten
Yep.
turned into,
Cadmark,
like,
too.
you know what I mean? So, I mean, there's a fairly large multifamily district down there right on the line of Chelmsford, which I looked at and I said, seems to fit the profile. I could be wrong.
So we totally thought about that.
Okay.
And we can still add that. It just seemed less genuine, because much of that area is already existing multifamily or permitted as multifamily, and there wasn't as much opportunity to combine it with other nearby properties so it would be less, we can still do it, I just feel you have the Neshoba Pizza Plaza and you have the office building across from
But
Neshoba.
you
But is there a
said that,
bus, but is there a bus stop? I'm sorry, Kate. Is that a bus stop right across the road then? Is that what the green?
It's showing the route,
Bus
yes.
route goes
Just the route.
along
That's not a stop.
110. We could try
I
to.
don't know, that's on our,
One of my questions is where's the stops? Because if it's close to a stop, it would seem
there's
to be
no,
consistent with.
there's no stop right there. If
Not at
there's-
West, there's not a one at Westford? Or in that area?
That's 19, so there might be one on Tadmuck. And at the school, there's one at the school.
It is
that
on-
actually is on our list to hit, because we had a question, did the stops actually change recently? So that's on our, we just haven't gotten to it. So if you'd like us to include this, we can. I'm just trying to be mindful about pairing it up with,
Aren't there problems
What's
like
this-
you
I'm sorry.
said that because they were variances through the ZBA?
well, I don't understand.
Like Princeton and 19 Littleton, they have special permits through the ZBA.
That doesn't, for purposes of this, it doesn't matter.
What is
If we
the
change
pairing
it,
on?
overlay.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
So when because we could honestly have taken all existing multifamily developments and probably checked the state's box for
Yeah.
satisfying the minimums, but that wouldn't in fact create really any potential for additional dwelling units. So we asked, can we include some multifamily existing or permitted, as long as we also include meaningful potential for
Yeah.
additional dwelling? And they said yes. But if we just go through and pick the multifamily, it's not gonna,
No, I mean, I get that, but I mean, it's on the route.
Yep.
I mean, it's a large parcel with like, for most of it, one road that winds through it.
oh, Princeton Properties there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite the wetlands, the crossing, the whole, what was that, salamander
not
issue
familiar
or
with the
turtle?
Yeah, it's right across from where the junkyard is.
No,
It's
it
those
was the
high-rise.
wetland crossing.
It was a wet, but there was other stuff, but,
You can see it from South Chelmsford Road by the 4-H, you can see the backside of it.
yeah, so that's already, that's developed. The reason there isn't more is because of the site constraints for the wetland resource areas.
Got it.
I hate to say it, you wanna put the 4-H on there?
Across from it. right
Well, actually,
Right there.
there's a problem putting that property in there. Because there are some, if there are certain restrictions, we can't include, like, you can't put in land that has a CR. But there are some restrictions I know from an A&R that was trying to go before this board, that there are some restrictions in place, for that. So that's not a simple thing there.
And what about, okay, like on 27?
So, 27, there are some possibilities.
Down near the Acton line, right?
There may be some possibilities by the Acton line. There could also be some possibilities closer to the Chelmsford line.
Trail right there too.
Yep. By the same token, we could also go further down.
Oh, by Kennedy's, maybe?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We could also go further down Powers Road, because I mean, in theory, that gets you
Yeah. That was,
closer to access.
well, it's funny that you mentioned it. That was the other area that I was surprised I didn't see anything in, is I thought we had sort of had at one point, a conversation out towards, Neshoba, out that way, right? Aren't there some areas there?
Potentially, yes. And so if you want us to cast a bigger net, we're happy to do that. We're also, I guess, thinking about town meeting and
Yep. How it's gonna go. Okay,
because
I gotcha.
the reality is, with what we already have shown you as a possible, will probably more than exceed what's required by the state by
I
far.
think more of the
Right.
consensus when we talked before, not that it doesn't, can't change, but
Yep.
it's more the 110 corridor.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Keep
yeah,
it-
yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
If we're okay, if we have lots already delineated, then.
Yeah. No, but on the whole, I was good with what you guys talked about. I was
But we're
just-
happy to add in other areas, or even add some warrants further study, whatever makes sense.
Sure.
And we can't get it wrong yet, it's only an action plan, but
Yep.
I want a good action plan. I don't want us to line up a consultant, and I want a good starting point.
Sure.
I would add those Dylan brought up, Matrix One and, Liberty Way.
Yeah, well, you guys talked about Liberty, I think, you brought up Liberty
Yep.
in the last meeting, but.
Bob also asked us to add, what is that hotel?
Hampton Inn.
Hampton Inn.
Oh,
Oh,
Down-
down there by,
Dixon.
behind Chili's.
Yes.
yeah, that makes sense.
Do you want us to add this area, the eastern Chelmsford side of 110?
How about Tech Park East, cause I'm sure they're hurting now.
Maybe if you feel like you have enough in what you put forward.
Well, my concern is if we have 10 times the capacity than is required by the state, I foresee challenges at town meeting.
But we could take Rotten Road off, and-
Well, it's gonna be not in my backyard, right? That's what's gonna happen in the meeting.
yeah.
Yeah. But, well, maybe that area on the Chelmsford line on 110 East, I'm sorry, 119. No, 110.
110.
East is like an area to explore,
Okay.
or an item for further
Happy to do
exploration
that.
discovery.
Do you want us to look at some other properties down Powers Road?
You've pretty much got
Yeah, I think.
all of Powers Road that
Yeah.
you're gonna get.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Kate.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, the properties right on Powers, Nardone sold them about 5 years ago. But there's still all the Nardone property. And then, Robbins Road.
Yeah, what's that off Powers? Visit Vineyard, we could maybe?
But would the Tech Park East area be worth considering?
Well, we're at least, I mean, anything is worth considering.
Just 'cause
I'm
there are a
not
lot of
sure
big-
that's.
There are a lot of big buildings there that they might be having trouble.
I think the vacancy rates have, I think, improved, and they've been doing some tenant fit-ups. I mean, we at least have that hotel in that area. If you'd like, we can do warrants for further study, or we don't have to at this point. I mean, anything is fair game going forward, so I mean, we don't have to worry, I just want a methodical, decent starting point.
Just 'cause it's nice, 'cause it's right near the shopping and the LRT.
We actually thought it was quite the walk from the hotel to get to places to be on Littleton Road. It's deceptively far, I thought. It's interesting.
From the Regency?
No.
No.
No, from the Hampton?
Oh, from
Hampton.
Hampton. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like up here.
That's one of the reasons that we didn't include it initially, but the Regency may, I mean, front and center, just like the former Very Fine, it's like there's things that you can easily get to.
Yeah, but it's closer than Princeton, although Princeton exists. I got it.
So,
And there is the bus route.
okay,
Okay, I think we got some good direction.
great.
Thank you all very much, I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, well, that brings us to correspondence reports updates. Normally, we would approve some minutes. There were no minutes this week. So, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
I say aye. Thank you. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.